So we're going to go ahead with our three students that are currently in their clinicals right now. So if Riley, if you want to go ahead.
Hi everyone, I'm Riley. I'm a senior in my clinicals. I'm doing my clinicals at Henry Ford Health in downtown Detroit, which I'm super excited to be at. I actually only have 4 days left, and I'm in the process of accepting a job there. So I'm super excited. Ms. Marshall will be happy to hear that it is in hematology. So I'm really excited about that. When I was at MSU, I was involved in BLDSA. I also was the president of Women in STEM. So if you're not in that club, go join it. It's awesome. I was in the AP MLS Smiles program. I did intramural soccer and I did undergraduate research as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kara.
Okay, hi guys, I'm Kara. I'm also a senior in the MLS program. I'm currently doing my clinical rotations at ProMedica in Toledo. Some of you may know me from micro. I was the TA of the micro lab last year, so hey guys, good to see you again. But yeah, so far I've really been enjoying my experience at ProMedica. It's been just really awesome. Like I have no shortage of good things to say about it. So happy to answer whatever questions you guys have about that. Let's see. I did accept a position in the hematology department. That was my first rotation. So about 4 weeks. And then at the end of that 4 weeks, they said, hey, like you have done really well. It would only take a little bit more training for you to start working. So they actually hired me like right after that. And I've been kind of working some second shift hours like once my clinicals are done. So I'll usually do clinicals from 7 to 3, and then I'll work like a few days a week from 3 to 8. So that's been really awesome, getting some extra experience in hematology, and been doing pretty well on the hematology part of my exams. So I feel like that's helped a lot. And just overall, like getting more experience in the lab, seeing like the lab operations side of things, like how everything runs with the lab information system and results reporting and that kind of thing has been really helpful. And that would be helpful no matter where I end up working in the future. So that's been really cool. I've finished my heme rotation, my chem rotation, and I am at the tail end of my microbiology rotation right now. I have one more week, and then I start blood bank, which I'm excited for. And I'd say micro's probably been my favorite rotation so far. It's a lot of fun, and I kind of knew that going into it that I was going to like micro a lot. So that's been really awesome, and everyone has been so welcoming and great at educating and being patient with me as I'm still a student, but also yeah, just it's just been really great. So yeah.
So, hello everyone. I'm Mario Gaudino. I graduated from Michigan State with a degree in microbiology, actually, in the spring of 2023. And I realized junior year, I was originally going to go to PA school. That was my goal. And junior year, I realized that wasn't for me as I was going through the graduate school requirements to get clinical hours to apply. And ultimately, through some stressful couple weeks, I found the MLS career path, and I think I made a great choice. I love what I'm doing. I love the lab work. So I joined the BLD classes. I got some overrides into it my senior year, and I went into the match program, and ultimately got interviews with the DMC in Detroit, Ascension and Grosse Pointe, I believe, and then Royal Oak, Beaumont. And I really loved the DMC. The coordinator is super nice, and she was actually very supportive of me and really wanted me in the program. So I ended up going there, and I started my rotation about a month ago in September. So I literally just started my clinicals, and I started in hematology also, and it's going really well. I only got a couple days left, and then I'm off to blood bank. But it's been a great start so far, and many of you might not be going into the match program per se, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have, hopefully.
All right, thank you guys so much. And then we're going to move on to questions from the audience. Is there anyone that has any questions specifically? You're welcome to unmute yourselves, or you can type it in the chat. If any members want to say any questions that they might have as well, go ahead.
I sent you one senior student gave me a question for you to ask.
Okay, I'm gonna,
When you put that up, I can ask one of mine.
go ahead.
Okay. So I want to know, how is the process of applying to MLS? Like through going to the application and the interview.
Gosh, that was a long time ago, it feels like. I think I stressed about it a lot, and I don't think I needed to stress as much as I did about it. You know, if you make it in the program before you get to the application and the interview process, and you're doing well with the course material and the classes, you're gonna be okay. Like, you're meant to be where you are, and you're capable of doing it. The application process, I think, is usually due in like December time in the fall of your junior year. And then in the spring, we had to do 2 different interviews. I know things kind of got mixed up because we had to do one of ours with Marianne, and then the second one was with Dr. Gerlach. Now I know the interviews are a little different, but the interview questions are just super straightforward. It's just them making sure they know you, and also that you would be a good fit. They're trying to make sure that you're getting the best opportunities possible for how you can succeed, and then they want to make sure that it's going to reflect well on the program as well when they send you to a hospital for clinics.
Yeah, I would agree with what Riley said, that I definitely over stressed about it and worried about it, but they really are just kind of making sure that you're a good fit and will succeed. And if you've been succeeding so far and you enjoy the program, I think that'll show through in, your interviews and your application. And also do they still do the writing part of the application? That was something that I was really worried about. But I think in doing it, I like all my nerves kind of calmed, and I was like, okay, it's not as difficult or stressful as you would think. It's a lot of common sense and judge of your own character type of thing. And so I don't think I needed to worry as much as I did. And I think if you are worried about it, that shows that you care about it, and I think you'll be just fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have one question from the chat. What is the biggest challenge you faced during clinicals, and how did you overcome it?
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I know the question was about MLS interview, but I think people wants to know about the match program interview also.
Yeah, for sure. I can speak on that. So the interview was pretty straightforward. They obviously I went into it a little bit later, so they really just wanted to see why I chose the MLS career path, and they kind of wanted me to express that it wasn't like a second option. It was me finding out what I really wanted to do and putting myself out there to obtain an MLS accredited degree and stuff like that. So It was really straightforward. The coordinators and the employers are super nice. They are very helpful at Beaumont and DMC and Ascension. If you ever have questions, you can always talk to the MLS advisor, and then they can also reach out to those coordinators at the DMC and other like Ascension and Beaumont, and you can kind of get a gist for what they're looking for on applications, and you can work towards that towards the end of your schooling at Michigan State to have a better chance or a more competitive chance compared to other students. But yeah, it was kind of like the other ones with the interview questions and such. It was pretty straightforward.
And I kind of also, just to add to that, sorry, I know someone else had a question, but in terms of when you get to clinicals, and they don't interview you when you get to clinicals, at least they didn't where I was, but they don't expect you to know everything and be like, like you would be certified already. They don't, you come in, they know you're a student, they know that, you have a baseline of information, but they don't expect you to come in with all of this extra super specialized knowledge. So if you're worried about not being ready or qualified in that aspect, I wouldn't worry about that either. They really teach you kind of all you need to know. And having that background from MSU, I can't stress enough how well I feel like the program prepared me for clinicals, especially compared to students that come from other schools. Their programs just aren't as thorough as ours is. So if you are worried about it in that aspect, I would say don't be.
Yeah, going off of that too, at Henry Ford, we get compliments every day from different people about how well the MSU students are prepared, how smart the MSU students are, how they know so much more information than these other schools, like the poor Wayne State students there. They have to teach, they don't know half the things that were taught in school. So, and even though you feel kind of lost when you first start, you know so much more than you think you know.
Yeah.
Question in the chat. The biggest challenge, well, I'm working at a very large hospital, which is something that I knew I wanted. But with working at a large hospital, I train with basically different people every single day. I might get repeats during my rotations, but on a 5-day week, I'm usually working with 5 different people. So you have to adapt to a lot of different personalities, some young people, some older people, women, men, all kinds of people who love to teach students and are really great teachers, and people who, are like, oh, I got a student, okay. And then you'll have people who are right over your shoulder, and then you'll have people who kind of just let you do the work for them. So that was a big challenge in the beginning, was learning to adapt, that every day is going to be different, and going into it with a different mindset depending on who I'm working with. Which I do think Dr. Gerlach did warn us about that, but it's different having it actually happen to you. The majority of the people are extremely nice, extremely willing to teach and to help you. But, every once in a while, you'll get someone who's just not a teacher, and they're not getting paid more to teach you or to help you train. So you just got to be prepared for that.
Okay, I have some questions from some seniors that emailed Dr. Brennan. The first one is, what is the studying on your own after hospital training like?
So for me, it's mainly, with at the DMC, it kind of depends. With students, some days you'll have a ton of stuff to do for 8 hours straight in the lab, and some days you might only be in the lab for an hour or two, just based on how busy it is on a given day. And they have a student lounge where I can do my studying that pertains to whatever clinical rotation that I'm currently in. And then they also offer, or they do lecture series within the clinical program that pertains to the clinical that you are in. And it's during your, the same clinical hours. It's not extra added on afterwards. And basically your time during the day, you'll kind of be going, at least for me, going in and out of clinical and then also studying and doing other like kind of group work type stuff. But usually I don't take a lot of stuff home to work on unless I have a test or a practical coming up, which is nice, not taking any school or work home after the day.
I would say studying, I'm still doing my hospital experience. And then on top of that, I also work sometimes after my clinicals. So if I work and I come home late, I'm just done for the day, like need to get a good day's sleep for tomorrow. But on days that I don't work, I come home and I try to get a little bit of studying in. And a lot of that is practice exams as we're preparing to take our certification exam. I think we can sign up to take it come like mid-November. And then they give us a couple months to schedule it. So we'll be taking it in the next couple of months, I know, for most of us. So trying to prepare for that has been kind of stressful. But the practice exams have helped a lot. And during clinicals, we take exams every 2 to 3 weeks, depending. So that has been good, I feel like, to kind of keep up with the knowledge in every subject, because when you're just in one rotation, you get so honed in and focused on that one thing. I'm like, all my heme knowledge, I feel like, went out the window when I started chemistry. Like you just focus on that one thing so much. So having to take these exams every 2 to 3 weeks, you feel like you're more well prepared for that certification exam. And I also bought a book from the ASCP certification website, and that has a lot of practice questions too. And that has been really helpful, but it's important to not overwork yourself, overdo it. Like you will burn out if you try to do too much. So just kind of prioritizing and time management is really important. So.
I got an interesting question from another senior, and they asked how your sleep schedule was or is like.
For me, my shift is from 7 to 3 every day. I'm like a grandma now. I go to bed at 9:30 because I get up at 5. I drive with one of the students that I'm rotating with. So sometimes I guess I'll sleep in the car. But my sleep schedule's okay. I know it's gonna change when I'm gonna be working on afternoon shifts, so I'll be working from 3 to 11. But kind of like with the study schedule, like kind of what Kara said, if I work after clinic, I'm not gonna come home and study and stay up late. The studying's not the same as like what it was when you're like cramming for an exam. You were taking like an exam tomorrow, but it's kind of like you've been studying since you started clinic. So when you have time, you take practice exams. But I don't think, at least none of the people that I know, and I think like Kara will agree, like we're not staying up Thursday night till, midnight trying to cram for an exam anymore. So
Right. Also,
and at
it's
Henry Ford, we don't go in on exam days, which is very nice. That's not true at all hospitals. But we don't drive in on the Fridays we have exams. So that's nice as well if you just plug in Henry Ford.
see, and I do go to clinic on exam day, but usually they'll let me go at like noon because our exams are at 2. So that's good. But I will say, yeah, you can't really cram for these exams because they cover everything. Like anything and everything you've learned could be on these exams. So, and I will say it's like stuff that you learned in class that you never thought you were going to have to remember, and you have to remember it. So
the most random
random, obscure parasite you don't think you've ever heard of. You learned it once and you're going to have to know it, like that type of thing. So it's not really possible to cram, but I find that doing practice exams and questions are the best way to kind of prepare yourself and stuff. But in terms of sleep schedule, yeah, mine's not great, but I get enough sleep. I have the same like clinic schedule, 7 to 3. For my micro rotation, I don't have to go until 8. So that's kind of nice. But I think for blood bank, I'll have to go in at 6. So just kind of adjusting to those different things. And then once I started working some second shifts on hematology, you kind of get, okay, I'm like kind of losing out on sleep. Maybe I need to work less and sleep more. So finding that balance. And they're all like everyone is super understanding of the fact that, you know, you're a student, you're doing clinicals, that kind of comes first. So it's kind of a work when you can and have the extra time to. So, yeah.
Looks like we have a question from the chat. What are the positives and negatives that you have experienced working in a large versus a small hospital, and which do you like more?
A piece of advice that I got from Dr. Hoig, which influenced my decision for my rankings, was it's much easier to go from a large hospital to a smaller hospital because of the workload and the amount of samples that are coming in. So I really enjoy working in a big hospital. We're extremely busy. There's not a lot of downtime. There's always samples coming in. There's always something to do. There's always a trauma. There's always something going on. So as a student, I've learned a lot. Henry Ford also has like different programs that like we have a sickle cell program. So like in blood bank, it's really cool to learn about like how that works for all the transfusions and stuff. And then at larger hospitals, you might also get a chance to like do some other rotations that smaller ones might not do. So like we did an HLA rotation, we did a point of care rotation, we did a serology rotation, phlebotomy, a transfusion rotation. So we went and watched like pheresis and blood transfusions. So sometimes there can be more opportunities in that sense.
Yeah, I will say I have done all my rotations at the main core lab of Toledo Hospital, and the lab itself isn't attached to the hospital. It's kind of like across the street in its own building. So a lot of the samples get tubed over, but we also get a lot of outreach from the smaller hospitals. So I think ProMedica has like 11 hospitals, regional hospitals that send their samples to us. And when I was communicating with the clinical coordinator before my rotations, she had asked, do you want to do all your rotations at one hospital, or would you like to do some at the smaller hospitals? And I moved right by the main hospital, so I decided to just do all my rotations here. But I know a lot of people that work at the core lab main hospital now used to work at some of the smaller regional hospitals, and they said it is slower, but it doesn't feel slower because you're doing more. You kind of have more responsibilities, and a lot of people at the smaller hospitals are generalists, so they kind of have to work every department or cover multiple departments on a shift because it's slower, but then you get exposed to more, you're doing more things, you know, like it's more of a variety of things during your shift. Whereas if you're just in one department, you might be doing the same or a few things throughout the whole shift. So it just depends on where you fit best. I have a friend that got hired at a smaller hospital, and she said she likes it. She likes getting to work. Some nights she'll work in blood bank, some nights she'll work in micro, some nights she'll work more than one department. And she likes that smaller feel. I don't know if I would work at a smaller hospital. It might be something I try out if I find something else somewhere. But for right now, I feel like a big hospital is good for a student because you get to see a lot of stuff. I know if I had done my training at some of the smaller hospitals, there's a lot of stuff they don't do that they send to the main lab to do. So I wouldn't have gotten to see all of that, like special testing, some special stains, that kind of thing. So
I do have like a couple friends who are at smaller hospitals. An opportunity that they get is like if they don't have a micro department, they get to go to like whatever hospital they send it to, or if they use like a reference lab like ward, they get to rotate there as well. So if you do choose a smaller hospital, you'll have more opportunities to like go to other places, and you might find out like even if you don't like the hospital you're at, you might like the one that you rotate at for micro or something like that.
My family.
Hi.
I'm not talking to anyone.
What was that?
Okay. So another question was how's your guys' free time working in these clinicals?
For me, my free time, I kind of mentioned this earlier. It kind of depends on the day in the clinical rotation that I'm in. So some days, I do have a lot of free time to study, and obviously I just started, so I'm not really diving deep into the studying for the board exam per se. But within my clinical rotation, there are small tests that I take just to stay within the program, kind of like college. So I have free time to do that. And some days I do get out early because there's only so much I can do in a lab for the day. So I'll have, the rest of the afternoon to either work and make some money, or if I'm, tired and burnt out, I can just, go home and relax for the day. So it's dependent on the day, but you're not always in for, 8 to 10 hours straight.
I feel like I have a lot more free time than I did when I was at state. The evenings just feel a lot nicer. But as a student in clinic, you have the weekends off. I mean, obviously you can work and get paid if you want to. But I do use that as a rule, as a break. I've always tried to do that, like even in college, to take like Friday nights and Saturdays off. But yeah, I feel like I have a lot more free time these days. I need a hobby. So
I definitely don't feel like I have as much free time. Just because I work a few days a week. Some days I work, or some weeks I work 3 days, some weeks I work 4. But I try to take one day off a week from work. It's if you are like have to move for clinic, and live on your own and have to get a job, it is hard to balance that and find free time. But it's important to have time to yourself. But they don't let me work weekends as of right now because I have to be there Monday through Friday for clinic anyway. They drew the line there. They said you don't have to work weekends, so that's been nice. And I have made some friends that work in the lab, and so sometimes on the weekends we'll do stuff together, so that's been nice. But yeah, my weekends are really my main free time, and I try not to even think about lab too much on weekends because it's like, okay, I'm at the lab doing clinicals. Okay, I'm at the lab working. It's like the lab's always on your mind all the time. And then when you get home and you have to study and it's more lab. So I try to take the weekends off from thinking about lab stuff. So those are my free time days for sure. But yeah, you kind of have to expect during clinicals, you're not gonna. Oh, did I get okay, there we go. If you go in not expecting a ton of free time, that's probably for the better, just in case, you end up being super busy and needing to study a lot. So, but once you're done with clinic and you get a job, I have heard from a lot of people in the lab that you just feel like you have so much free time because now you're working, and outside of work, you don't have to study, you don't have to really think about work too much. So looking forward to that.
I have a question. Can I ask one? You guys said that you felt very prepared, but was there any area that you felt you could have used more knowledge about when you got to clinic?
Well, I don't know if every hospital does it, but phlebotomy, like we kind of just got sent in there, and I had never drew blood before. Neither had Josh, and then Matt and Jill had before, so like they were okay, but we didn't really get like trained. And I even like told the person, I was like, I have never done this before, like I'm extremely nervous, like I'm in the lab, I don't want to deal with patients, that's why I'm upstairs. But I just got sent with a patient and a list of instructions, so possibly that, which I don't know if that was like during our COVID year that we were supposed to
We
learn.
used to teach it in 424, but we just did not, we ran out of time because there's just not enough time. And we were tired of students fainting.
Yeah, Josh wouldn't let me draw his, but I got to draw Matt and Jill's as
Nice.
part of my 10 people.
Mario, have you had to draw blood yet? Do any phlebotomy?
Not yet. I have like a half lecture series, half I would assume, clinical, doing that type of stuff coming up here in the next week. But we at least get a lecture, maybe an hour. But yeah, I've never done that. So we'll see.
I got like a video and I was like, okay, like where's the dummy here?
Yeah, I will say, like, we learned the process a couple times, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it's not the same when you got a needle right in front of someone.
it's different things. And I think I wanted to say earlier when someone had asked about what the biggest challenge was, I think it's just like being confident in your knowledge. Like I second guess myself all the time. Like in micro today, there was a culture and I'm like, I think I know what it is. But then she asked me if I knew what it was, and I'm like, I'm not sure, but I knew what it was. I knew it. So like you have to be confident in your knowledge because you are definitely well prepared. However, I will agree, phlebotomy, I did not feel well prepared for. I went in, I was so nervous and I'm like shaking with the needle. So learning it and doing it are two different things, but yeah.
Besides that, I can't really think of anything that.
Yeah, I can't think of a particular area where I have felt underprepared at all. Besides maybe just the fact that everything is so automated and like learning the ins and outs of all the different analyzers, like that's a whole other language, but it's different everywhere. So I don't know how you would really teach that. So, yeah.
We do have hemacues.
Do you really?
I was like, yeah, that's their backup for like if something goes wrong. I was like, I know how to use this.
Yeah, there's too many systems and they're all different. So there's no way we could ever do, and it's too expensive. We couldn't afford to run a lab with instrumentation. Right. Yeah. Do you guys all have lines?
Yeah.
Nice.
We're actually they're building a new hospital that should be done in 2026 that the lab will be moved to, and they're putting a new line in, but the line we have right now is beautiful.
So are you allowed to report patient results?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have to do it do you have your own logins or do you do it under the tech you're training?
Yeah, I have my own tech code and logins and stuff. They have to be like watching over my shoulder while I'm doing it, but like I call criticals. I do. Yeah. We get to report it. Some sections of the lab, like blood bank, was a little more strict. Like we didn't get to like do that by ourselves, but in chemistry, heme, yeah, we got to do it.
Yeah, mine was a little different. During clinicals, I didn't have a tech code or login or anything. So everything I was doing was under whoever was training me that day. And whether they felt comfortable letting me report things under their tech code, which most of them did. I will say there's a couple people that, they were more of the just let you sit and watch kind of people. And they, wouldn't necessarily let me feel comfortable reporting or feel comfortable letting me report patient results, but a lot of people did, especially if they are watching you or they have watched you do what you're doing for a little bit, and then they get the gist that you are comfortable. And if you are comfortable and you know what you're doing, they can sense that and they're more comfortable with that too.
Mario, are you working with actual patient samples?
For the most part, I don't have like a login or a tech code or anything. But I call criticals and stuff like that in the hematology lab. But nothing, I'm not grading anything, obviously, for right now. But yeah, I do help out under the tech I'm with for the day.
I have a question. Do you guys interact with doctors or like any patients like at all, or have you yet?
In phlebotomy.
Just that.
But that doesn't really count. That was one day. But we like interact with the pathologists like the most would be like outside from the lab tech people. Sometimes doctors will walk their samples up there, but not really. More just calling nurses.
Yeah, I will agree. It's a lot of phone communication more than anything, especially for us. We're across the street, not even in the same building as most of the doctors. But a lot of phone communication with nurses, like if there might be an issue with the sample or a question about a sample, or if they have a question about, what to draw or what kind of specimen is needed. I know in micro they get that a lot. They'll say, hey, I have this patient. We're interested in finding out this. What kind of specimen should we send? How much of it do we need? So they don't necessarily have a ton of that specific lab knowledge, and sometimes what test to order. Even they say, hey, I'm looking for this information. How can I obtain that information? So having that background of knowledge is always good. But yeah, communicating with nurses, doctors over the phone, and then calling criticals is important. That's a big communication too. And I didn't really have any interaction with patients except for during my phlebotomy rotation. I did 3 days in phlebotomy. One was outpatient. So, the patients walk in to get their blood drawn. They're, definitely more willing also to let a student draw their blood. My other 2 days, I was in like the ICU. So it was not as good. Realized I could never be a nurse. That is just crazy. But it was good to be on that side of things and see, how they get the specimen and, kind of the state that the patients are in also, because you think, okay, like why did they, send a short draw? Like why couldn't they just send a whole tube of blood? Well, then you see the patients aren't in good condition. So it's not always the best on their end either. So I think that kind of opened my eyes a lot to what goes on their side of things.
Okay, thank you. So it looks like we have another question from the chat. What are your end goals after taking the certification exam? And do you plan on staying in the same clinic you are currently?
Yes, I love the hospital I'm at. I love all the people. So I will be staying there. But I plan to we can't take our certification exam until after we get our diploma or technically graduate. So I think that's like mid-December. And then I believe it's pretty typical that the hospital, if you get hired, they'll give you like 6 months to pass it. And like I know that's what Henry Ford has as well. But everyone who I've rotated with, and like even at like MSU, all the professors are like, take it right away. Like, especially if you're gonna work at a hospital where like my hospital doesn't have generalists, like you have to pick a discipline to work in. So like the micro stuff's gonna go like out the door if you don't take it quickly because you're not exposing yourself to it. So I plan to try and take it right away. I don't know if I'll wait till after the holidays or not, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of a ways out from taking the board exam, but I plan to take it right away and to start working right away full time. I've only been there a month, but I really enjoy the DMC. They're very organized and everyone there is super nice. So as of now, I don't see myself going anywhere else. And they usually, if you do your clinical rotations somewhere and you show interest in working in the same spot, they will hire you for the most part. Every place is looking for new hires and every place needs workers. So it's pretty easy to find a job, and usually where you're at clinical wise, you can find one right away.
Yeah, I will say I'm also planning on taking the exam right away. You hear people tell you that, and I would agree, you definitely should. There's been quite a few students from University of Toledo. I know a lot of Toledo students, because it's so close, they send their MLS students right over here. And quite a few Toledo students have waited too long to take their exam and failed. And personally, like, I didn't realize that people failed because all you hear is, oh, like there's such a great pass rate for students at MSU. I think that's because it's so emphasized to take your exam right away. Also because they prepare us very well. But yeah, I will definitely be taking that as soon as we can schedule it and it makes sense to take it. But definitely keeping up with studying in between then and now. But I took a part-time position right after finishing my hematology rotation, and so I've been working there since. And then they offered me full-time once I'm finished with my rotations, but I also got offered a full-time in micro. So I'm kind of in between those two right now. Kind of need to decide because that's coming up soon. But I do definitely plan on staying at ProMedica for at least a while. I really like it. It's been super awesome, like I said. And they're definitely interested in hiring students, and they don't get a lot of MSU students just because it's Toledo, so people don't have a reason to move to Toledo. They don't really put it on their preference list. I know that's kind of how it was for me. I'm like, oh, I'll throw it on there. And then I got placed there. So like, I told everyone, I was like, oh, I'm going to Toledo. Like I wasn't super excited about it, but like it was the best thing that could have happened because I really love it. So if any of you are like, from the area or like thinking about it, definitely keep an eye on it. Maybe put it on your list of places to tour, because it's really great and it is a big hospital and I've seen so much. So right now I couldn't see myself going anywhere else.
Also, one thing to add, I think Dr. Gerlach used to say this to us a lot, and it's so true. The subjects that you think you love, like in school, can totally flip when you go to clinic and are actually in the lab. Like, I loved blood bank always. Like, I was like, that is my thing. It makes so much sense to me. Like, I love working in it. And I mean, I always liked hematology, but I never would have, like, if you asked me a year ago, I'd be like, no, I'll be in blood bank. Totally flipped. Like blood bank just like wasn't as fun to me as hematology was. So make sure you have an open mind when you enter it.
Yes, I would agree. And I have a question for Mario. In terms of, so you started a degree in microbiology, but now you're getting your clinical experience and certification in every department. How do you feel about that, going from just one thing to everything?
Yeah, so obviously it's been a little challenging just because I feel behind from everyone else. I only got a year of BLD courses. But being Michigan State and the program it is, I actually was very well prepared compared to the students I'm currently with. But going from just micro, it's interesting to look at the other facets of the lab. And I've heard just a couple of the other students don't really enjoy micro that much. And I'm interested to go into that rotation and see if I am different just because I had that degree in micro, or if I'll love it because I always have. But you never know. And I never thought I'd like, hematology or blood bank. And I'm really enjoying the hematology lab right now and doing differentials and doing body fluids and all that type of stuff. So I think it is really important to keep an open mind and, not center yourself in to just liking one portion of the lab because you think you like it right now.
I'm kind of curious how like the matching process goes with like how you know what hospital you're gonna end up with and stuff.
Yeah, so obviously, as I've said, I was a little late, so I don't know if other students are going through the match process or not. But if you are going through the match process, it's basically, I don't believe it's not through MSU, but you go through the hospital's kind of university setting, clinical setting sort of thing. And so you apply to, there's three, I believe, which I've stated is Beaumont, Royal Oak, and Ascension, Grosse Pointe, and then the DMC in Detroit. And you go through interview processes for all three. You have to submit transcripts and that sort of thing, and get your letters of rec and all that. And you go through the interview process, and then after it, it's kind of you rank them 1 through 3. So I ranked the DMC number 1. So, and then I think Royal Oak Beaumont last, just because it just didn't work out for me because I was late to the program or whatever. And they do their rankings also, or they state in the match board, I believe, if they want the student, and then they go off of your rankings. So yeah, I ended up picking the DMC first, and the DMC wanted me too, so I was selected there because it was my first choice instead of my second choice. So yeah.
How many students are in your cohort, Mario?
So my cohort that started in September, the first week of September, it's me and 4 other students. And they kind of split it up. So there's 10 of us total. The other 5 in the other cohort started back in January. So they stagger them. So, there's 5 experienced students who have kind of been there for half a year, and then they bring in 5 more students who are new. So it's not just a whole wave of 10 new students coming in at once, which was really nice because we were able to talk to the other 5 students who are in the program currently.
And I did just want to touch on how the matching kind of works for the MLS program, if any of you aren't familiar or don't know yet. But so basically, like once you get into the MLS program, you'll get a lot more information about how it actually works. But for us, at least, I think there's 18 or 19 clinical affiliates, most of them in Michigan. And you had the opportunity to select 3 that you wanted to tour the lab. And then we had to put 4 on our preference list. And so you kind of write a little blurb about each place that you want to put on your preference list, why you want to go there, why it would make sense for you to go there, like in terms of living situation, things like that, financial situation. I know for a lot of people, like if it's somewhere close to home, they could move home. That was like a big reason for them to go to a certain clinical affiliate. And then I don't think the hospitals got to choose which students they wanted, like how it was with Mario, because there's a bigger group of students and the hospitals don't get to know you beforehand. So it's up to kind of the clinical team at MSU that decides kind of who goes where and where you would succeed. So they're not going to give you, somewhere out of the blue that you're not anticipating, but you do have to choose from that list. And I don't know if that list has changed at all or if it will change, but there was like 18 or 19 of them. But we did get an opportunity to tour some of them. So that was kind of cool. Especially for me, like I hadn't been in a clinical lab before. So getting to see a bigger lab and a smaller lab during my tours kind of gave me an idea of where I could see myself doing my clinicals at. So
yeah, I think everyone in our like MLS cohort got something in their top 4 except like 1 or 2 people maybe. And yeah, it's like a two-way decision. So like a lot of people didn't get their first choice. And if you went and talked and like, tried to figure out why, it's also where they think you're gonna best fit and where they think you'll succeed based on like past people that they've sent there and just like what they know about the program.
yeah, so I will say, like, don't have your heart set on one place in particular because you might not get that place. Like, I know a lot of people wanted to go to U of M because they have a really big lab. They have a lot of cool stuff. Like, I toured at U of M and was just like in awe of how big their facilities were and like how much cool extra stuff their students got to do. But it all works out the way it's supposed to. Like, things happen the way they're meant to. So don't like go in having your heart set on one certain place because there might be a reason that someone else gets placed there and you get placed somewhere else. So you'll make the best of it wherever you end up.
It's also not your forever place. It's just where you did your internship. And hopefully you can stay there because you know their system, but that doesn't mean that you have to stay there.
Yeah, I was like slightly heartbroken for like a minute when I got Henry Ford. I really wanted Michigan, U of M. I'm from Canton, so it would be a 15-minute drive to work every day. But like looking back now, I know the people who made the decisions like understood that it probably wouldn't have been the best fit for me. And like looking at the other 3 students that were put like in the same hospital as me, were all very similar and like we're all extremely happy there. And so I think they know what they're doing is what I'm trying to say. Like it's okay to be bummed for a second and be like, I really, really thought I was meant to be in one place. But I mean, same with Kara, like she didn't want to go to Toledo. And I remember everyone, when they heard she was going, was like, what? She got to like, but as she said, like she's extremely happy. I'm extremely happy where I am. I have friends who were extremely disappointed, like crying and had multiple meetings and now have loved it and have thrived where they are. So, and like Miss Markstrom said, you don't have to accept a job there. It would be nice, I mean, if you like it, but I have friends who liked it where they are, but still went out and accepted a job somewhere else.
Yeah, and there are openings everywhere. Like everywhere needs lab scientists. It's a growing field and it's so important for like everything in healthcare. A lot of decisions are based off of clinical results, so they need good lab techs. So everywhere has openings, so don't feel too discouraged. Like Riley said, you can always find something somewhere else. And like she said, like I had to move 3 hours away from home and to go to my placement, but like it is the best thing that could have happened because I'm really happy where I ended up. So like everything works out the way it's supposed to.
Okay, thank you guys. All right. So I wonder if we have any last minute questions. It is 6 o'clock, but if you do, go ahead and type it in the chat real quick. But other than that, thank you, Riley, Kara, and Mario for coming to our speaker series. It was wonderful talking to you, and it was so nice to hear about your guys' experience, and really glad that it's going well for you guys. So all right. So I think that concludes our speaker series. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you.
you guys all for
Thank
coming,
you.
for listening.